All right, welcome everybody. Thank you for coming and joining us on this introductory webinar to Powerboat routing. So I will jump into a screen share. So a little bit before we get started in the actual routing itself. So we can do Powerboat routing in the PredictWind app or the PredictWind Offshore app. The PredictWind app is you can use it on your phone or an iPad or a tablet, or on your laptop. So which we'll be looking at a bit today in a web browser. So the PredictWind app and the forecast website are the same, look the same basically, and we use them the same way. So use the PredictWind app when you've got cellular or Wi-Fi. So you could use that if you had a Starlink connection, or whether you're at the marina, or whether you've got 4G, LTE, that sort of thing. You would use the PredictWind app. The reason we don't always use the PredictWind app is that if you are going to be going out of cell range, turning off your internet connection, like lots of people do with their Starlinks, then we would use the Offshore app. And the reason for that is the Offshore app saves your data offline. So you can download all your data and then come back to it an hour later and it's all still there. The PredictWind app does not remember your data like that. We can also have a lot more control about what we download in the Offshore app. So if you are using a lower speed satellite connection, you can control your download size for the Offshore app. So we are here today to talk about Powerboat routing, and it's something that we developed about a year ago. Specifically, we changed our algorithm specifically for to tailor to powerboats, and you can use it for anything from a 30-mile passage to a 3,000 nautical mile passage. It's pretty versatile and can give you some really, really useful information, and we'll sort of go through that today. But what we're generally routing for is the most fuel efficient route, and we'll go through how you do that and how you set that up. And one of the critical things that we will look at today is how we set up our Powerboat polars and how it works. And so, but this graphic here is actually a pretty good example of what's going on. And so we are looking at the wind drag of your boat, the wave drag, and we also use the currents in that algorithm. So that wind drag could also be pushing you. The wave drag can also be pushing you. And obviously we try to optimize for the currents. You'll hear me talk a bit later about roll. So that's our boat rolling sideways. Vertical acceleration is up and down, and slamming is, pitching over waves. And yeah, and we'll get into the rest of it once we get into the routing, which we'll go straight into now. So I'm in the PredictWind forecast website. This is the same as the PredictWind app. And you'll see here I'm already in the power routing. So, we do have all our other forecast tools in here that we could look at, observations, local knowledge. And then under weather routing, we have sail and powerboat routing. So we're in the powerboat routing. Departure planning is something that is very important to powerboating, because picking that right weather window is super important. And we are actually going to do another webinar on that in about a month's time. But the weather routing uses the same algorithm as the departure planning. The departure planning just helps you choose whether you should leave this morning or this afternoon or today or tomorrow or the next day or the next day. So you can plan those departures. But a really critical thing for having a nice passage in a powerboat route, you'll see some of the routes that I've loaded in here today. We would want to choose a slightly different window. But the nice thing about what we're going to look at today is you can see the information that it gives you when you possibly don't want to be out there. So, but before we can do our weather routing, we need to come in here to routing preferences and set up our vessel. And I'll just move my zoom controls. So you'll see here we want to optimize for minimum fuel consumption. We can also optimize for comfort, and that's where it will actually the router will try and avoid wind speeds and wave heights. And so that can be pretty nice as well. But I think if we do our departure planning properly, and then our routing properly, we should be able to get it right so that we're actually just using our seamanship and optimizing for fuel consumption. So in here, we need to set up for our vessel. So we want to know all of these dimensions here. So I'll just click on this. So we want to know the displacement, the waterline length, the hull draft, and the beam. And then we also want some other parameters from you, the height from the waterline to the top of the wheelhouse. And so we'll put that in here. I've got 6 meters and my economic boat speed. So this is just your cruising speed. And we want to know that. And so I've got 8 knots set in here. And then my economic RPM is 2,300. And then my liters per hour. And so this is all information that if you wouldn't have needed to use your boat much to know this information. But yeah, you can tweak this to get it right because it is important for our outputs later. So the liters per hour that we're using there, that's actually based on that economic RPM, and it will be factored by our wind drag and our wave drag. I'm set up for a monohull here. We do have power cats as well. So you make sure you choose the right one. The displacement here is for the boat I've got. It's actually, I think I've got a Nordhaven in here. The displacement is 62 tons. Waterline length is 17 meters, and beam draft. So those are all the things we looked at before. If you don't know this stuff, get it from your boat manufacturer and find it out, because this here, what we're doing with this information down here in particular is, well, actually all of it, but this stuff up here as well. We're creating a basic 3D model of your boat, and so that's how we can then calculate how it's going to go through the different wave states, and calculate your roll and vertical acceleration. So further down here, we can actually set our routing to avoid shallow areas. This isn't a navigation tool, but it is using a CMAP depth contour. And so I've got that set at 5 meters there. And so the router shouldn't take me into water that's shallower than 5 meters. But, as always, we want to check that on a chart in our nav tools. Tidal and ocean currents. This is really important to have those tidal and ocean currents turned on. So I've got that little tick box there, and I've got the Mercator model. These are different ocean current models, and you can have a look at the SST if you want to see which one's sort of closest to what's happening now. But in general, they do vary a bit, but you can just start with one and then see what you think and see if the outputs match what you see. So we have all our parameters put in for our boat. So, and you can adjust this over time if you think that things aren't right, or you change, things change. You haven't got your displacement right or whatever, you can adjust this stuff and rerun routes. Up here, I've got show extreme weather warnings. I want to see that. You'll see what that is when we look at it. And the map follows the boat when animating the route. That just means that as I move through my route, the map's moving with me. So I come over here I've just gone from routing preferences to Powerboat routing. And you'll see here, I have run a route, but we'll rerun it. And up here, this green marker here, that's my start. Sorry, I just moved my zoom controls. This here, that's my start waypoint. And so wherever I am, I can set that. And if I have a data hub or a device that's GPS enabled, I can actually come up here and I can click on this button. And if I clicked on that, it would take me to Auckland in New Zealand, where I am. So I won't. But yeah, you can have that. You can either click on that, or you can set your lat long in here, or you can zoom in and place the start waypoint, the green start waypoint, wherever you are. So we'll just move that up there a bit, and away we go. Actually, yeah, let's leave that there. So the next thing I need to do is look at my destination waypoint. So where am I going to? This is this red one here, and you'll see that straight line there. It's actually, if you put it across the world, it's actually a curve. It is a great circle line. And that's our our end waypoint. And again, I could put the lat long in here for it if I wanted to, and to put that in accurately, or I can just zoom in and put it wherever. And of course, we may not do this whole passage at once, but we can, we might be doing a shorter one. But for my example today, let's just run with that. So I've got my start and my finish waypoint set up. And so what I can do now, if I want to, I can, the default is now, but I could change this to a time in the future. And so that might be if I decided I'm going to leave tomorrow morning, or I'm looking to leave tomorrow morning, I could change that date and, put that for tomorrow morning, for example. Let's just run with now, and we will click on this blue button over here, which is going to calculate our route. And so what it's doing at the moment is it's calculating so basically every possible scenario. It is looking at 6 weather models. It's looking at all our wave data. It's looking at our tidal and ocean current data, and it is calculating our optimal route. And you can see that's done that already. It put all my boat parameters in there and created that basic 3D model of the vessel, and now it's giving me these outputs. And so we're looking at a wind map here, and I can look at all the different wind models there if I wanted to. So I can change it over, and if I just have a look at those, they're all pretty similar. And it looks like we've got that wind on our beam, and so looking at the size of the system, I would suspect that that's why I've got this exclamation mark here, is it's going to tell me that I'm getting rolled by the by the breeze. A few things we can look at here. I can look at my wave and the current, etc. And so if I turn on the wave, and you'll see we've got that wave coming on our beam, and then as we come down through our route. I'll just close this up. We'll just have a look at this wave, and then we'll go and look in the tables. But you'll see here I can come down, and this is what's cool about this weather routing. Like, we know that this is probably going to be nasty. Let's just click on that. So we've got a warning. That warning there is for roll and vertical acceleration. And so you can see it's warning us for this part of the passage here. That's where we're going to have those levels are above what we have as our acceptable threshold. So you'll see, and then we come down here, and then we go out of that warning area. And you can sort of see why we go out of it, because we get closer to land, and we come in here and things have obviously smoothed out. And then as soon as we go back out, we're into the roll again. So as I said at the beginning, this possibly isn't a passage that we would wanted to have taken on. But nonetheless, we can see what some of the outputs that the router will give us. So that's a pretty basic look at our wave and our route, and then we'll look at the details in a second. But something we should look at here is our currents. And so you can see here the router is doing its best jobs. Let's just scroll back. It's doing its best job to utilize the current. You'll see that it doesn't want to spend long in the Gulf Stream, and so it cuts straight across and then comes in here. It's got the back eddy there, but obviously that is, it would have calculated that going around here would have actually used more fuel than going straight through here. But it is looking at all of these factors, and it's also giving us warnings in our outputs if we've got wind against current. And you can see here why this is going to be so horrible. We know that this wind is coming across here in our waves, and we've got the Gulf Stream ripping up here. It's not going to be nice at all. So if I come over here and click on this tables button, and you'll see here I am in my wave parameters here. And what we're looking at here is we can see the combined wind wave and swell down this column here, and at the dates and times. And then we can see the wind wave, the primary swell, secondary and tertiary. So if there's nothing here in the secondary and tertiary, that means that those swells are not in the modeling. You'll see as we get further down the coast that there is a secondary swell, but that's not so much. It's obviously not the main factor here. The main factor is our wind wave and our primary swell. They are at different directions. You'll see they're quite different directions. 110 and 41, and our heights are different. So we've got the wind wave and the primary swell, and then we've got once we get down here, we've got the secondary swell, which is also going a slightly different direction, which is giving us pretty mixed up sea. But I think the main factor there is that both of those are on our beam, and you'll see here it's giving us this roll. So this roll is 6.4, 6.2. So that's degrees RMS, so the root mean square of our roll. And anything above 4, we start to think it's not very nice. And as you use this tool, you may find that you have your own sort of levels that you don't want to go above. And then at the same time, here we're below 0.2, and then we go above 0.2 here. So if I click on this warning here, it just says roll. If I click on this one here, it says roll and vertical acceleration. And that's because we've gone above this 0.2 threshold. So obviously the roll is probably going to make us feel pretty horrible. But the vertical acceleration is usually a much bigger contributor to seasickness. So yeah, just gives us these outputs, and we can look at this route and go, actually, we're not going to do this trip. So you see as we go down, it gets worse. The roll is worse. Yeah, until we get across that Gulf Stream into that shelter. And then you'll see these numbers drop right down. And then I'm sure, yeah, then as we get back out into the open ocean again, these numbers come up again. So we can also look at the wave and all of our parameters in the graphs. Pretty nice to look at our wave stuff in the graphs. I mean, these are our wind angles. So something else we may want to consider here is the rain in the Cape. Do we want to sail, are we going to be motoring into a thunderstorm? Yeah, so when we get higher Cape levels and rain together, that's an indicator of thunderstorm. So again, we can plan ahead with our routing and see what we might be motoring into. But if I come down here, we can have a look at our wave period, and I can look at the wind wave, the primary swell, and we can see that those, the period of those, that wave, the period of the wind wave, and they're quite different. So yeah, hence the reason that we see those outputs with a lot of roll and the vertical acceleration. It's just not going to be very nice. Current, obviously that's when we go across the Gulf Stream, and our current direction. So here we have our fuel consumption. It's pretty straight line for this passage. And I'll show you in a minute where we can see our estimated fuel consumption. But you see here, this is our vertical acceleration. So yeah, anything above that 0.2 is nice. Our roll, anything above 0.4 is not nice. So if we thought we were going to go right now and we looked at this, we would probably be prudent to go to the bar and have a look at tomorrow and the next day and see if we can find a better time to leave. No boat slamming, which is nice. So if I come up here to the summary, I can see my fuel consumption, and so how much fuel I'm going to use for this passage. And there's my average speed. So and this has all the same sort of information that we're looking at, just in a different format, but the amount of time that we're going to spend in the different wave states. So 65% of the time we're going to be in 2 to 3 meter waves. So yeah, not pleasant at all. I did have I thought I had another route set up there. What we'll do is I will stop sharing and I'll just show you how we can look at this in the Offshore App. Offshore App, here it is. Okay. I need to move these controls out of my way. So I'll just flick over to the map. So we are in the Offshore App now. And so this is the tool where we can save everything offline. And so we use this slightly differently. It looks slightly different to the Predict Wind app, but you can see once again that we're probably not going to, we haven't picked a very pleasant passage here. Just looking at the wave alone, we can see that that's not ideal. So again, in this tool, we have our green start waypoint and our red end waypoint, and we can set them up just the same as what we did in the web tool, and put our lat long in there if we wish to, and we can we've already set up our polars, so our account is logged in here, so it knows who we are, and then we come over here and we can click on download, and this is what I'm saying about how you can control everything that you download. So I could actually click on this, use offshore optimized settings. This file size down here, this total file size would go down to probably about 200 kilobytes. Well, let's try it. 65 kilobytes. So all of a sudden I've gone from a huge, super huge download to a a really small download that I could do on an Iridium Go or an Iridium Go exec or something like that. And then if I want to, I can then come in and change all these parameters. How long do I want the weather for? What resolution do I want it? And I can again make that file size really big. I want the cape, we want the wave, but depending on your connection type, you can change this. And so we have webinars that we've done about doing it on using it on a slow connection, and we have tutorials on it as well. So we're not going to go into the details of that today, but that is there. And so again, our weather routing settings, we could come in here and change those. If I click on that little settings wheel, our start time now, again, we could change it to the future. We're doing weather routing, and we can look at these different parameters. We've got GMDSS there. So the GMDSS has the written version, and then we have the graphical version, which shows up on the map, and we'll have a look at that. I just clicked on next. Let's get our currents and our GPS tracking. If we want other people to see where we are, we can share our track, and we can also download it and see our track. And if we were in a rally, where we can see everyone else in the rally as well and see their blog posts and stuff. So I click on next, and then we'll click on download all, and you'll see when these download over here on this left-hand side, we can see the times of the grids. So that's important to note so that we know that we've got the latest weather, because we want to be always updating our weather. Our models mostly update twice a day, some update more regularly. And then the currents ones update less regularly. So seeing when these files updated is good to know. You'll also get a little warning on the screen if they are really old or slightly out of date, and that's because we just want you to have the most recent data. So if you've got old data, it's it's not as good as having a new model run. So you see, with all of these parameters are downloading here, and we can see all our file sizes, and we're into the tidal currents, and that's something I want to talk about a bit, is the tidal currents, because we have modeled the 90% of the world's coastlines for tidal currents. And so a lot of the time in powerboating, we are doing coastal passages. Knowing what the tidal currents are doing on our coastal passages is a massive safety factor, and can make a big difference to your trip comfort. So yeah, if you haven't had a look at our tidal currents, go and check them out. Everyone that's on this webinar can use our promo code to do the free upgrade to go, and you can look at the tidal currents. You can use this powerboat routing and have a go. So we've downloaded everything there. You see we've got our ticks on the side. So I'll click on close, and you'll see here it's opened up in my tables, and I can see all those same factors that we were looking at before on our other passage, but we were on the web version. If I come over here to my summary, I can see my fuel consumption, the amount of time, 1 day, 17 hours for the passage. You'll see they do vary slightly. That's just the different wind models slowing us down or speeding us up. And, the average wind speed, max wind speed. And down here, we have our wave stuff again. And so our roll, and you'll see again, we're above. We've got another nasty passage. Yeah, we need to go back and look at our weather windows. So you see here the influence of the polar due to the waves. And so this is either slowing us down or speeding us up. And so a lot of the time it is doing that. So, and if I click on the map and change my model, did I get wave? Just move my zoom controls. So we can see here we've got our passage. If I come back, and then if we zoom out, and we can I'll talk about our GMDSS. So we have these here are all graphical illustrations of the GMDSS forecast. So that is written by a meteorologist, and we then convert that written text into a graphic, and that's what we're showing here. And if I click on this, it will say, it'll take me to the text of that that warning, and so then I can have a look at the warning. It's this part here that's highlighted, because if you've ever looked at a GMDSS forecast, they're pretty long. So having that visual and knowing which bit it's referring to is very nice. Just click on close there. And what else do I want to do? I want to actually show you the AIS. So if I come down here and I turn the AIS on, and zoom in, you'll see here I have AIS targets as of now within 300 nautical miles. So what can I do with this is I can actually have a look at where we're going to run into traffic and plan ahead. So for example, if I was coming up here, there's obviously a fair bit of traffic coming out of here, and these green guys are all cargo ships. And so when we went through this area here, we're probably going to want to be a little bit more more diligent than what we were down here. And we might, if this is at night, we might have an extra person on watch, paying extra close attention to our radar. And then we also have another feature. If you have one of our little data hubs, you can get what we call over the horizon AIS. So that's, you have your local VHF based AIS, and then we're constantly pinging our servers, and we're giving you what we call over the horizon AIS. And so that again is giving us this much wider range, and that can actually feed into your chart plotter. So just giving you a much wider AIS target view. So chart plotter or nav software, on an iPad or whatever you want to use, but having that wider range can give you a lot more warning as to where you're heading into, especially with these guys that are often going pretty fast. That guy's going 11 knots. What's this guy doing? Yeah. So yeah, knowing where these guys are and what they're doing is pretty important. Our ocean data. So again, we can see our ocean currents. If I come down here, I probably don't know whether this route I would have collected any tidal currents. So we can see some of our tidal currents, but really, if we were in here, we would actually be able to see these high resolution tidal currents down to 100 meter resolution, and really, really useful. I'll just stop sharing the Offshore app, unless there was anything else we needed to look at in there. Don't think so. Stop sharing that there, and find another screen. So just to show you some of this tidal current stuff super quickly before we wrap up. So I'm back in the forecast website, and I just want to show you, and unfortunately, I'm in Auckland, but this is where my kids are going sailing this afternoon. But you'll see here, these are our tidal currents. So out here, this is where they race the America's Cup, and some of the time in here. And if we zoom in, this is actually really small scale, high detailed stuff. So we can see these currents. So, knowing what they're doing and actually being able to visually see them throughout the tidal cycle is really, really cool. This is one of my favorite things, is actually seeing the tide changing on the edges first. If you've, something that is pretty useful to know for any type of powerboating, fishing, sailing, whatever you're doing, knowing what these tides are doing is pretty amazing. And so you can see as we move through the time scale there, it yeah, it changes, and yeah, just animating that through is pretty cool. All right, I will wrap that up there. And I'll stop sharing my screen. If you have any questions, please reach out to our support team. They are there to help. They're amazing people and super helpful. All right. Thank you very much, everyone, and all the best. And as I say, please reach out to our support team if you have any questions.